Episode 15, Ash That Lingers. By the time the market decided it was day, Ash still dusted the seams of Liora's boots. She scraped it against the curbs and stall legs until her soles were smudged and gray. The ash would not leave. It felt less like dirt and more like a decision clinging to her steps. Aunt Faye set a slower pace, bartering for practical things. Dried roots, binding thread, a puck of tallow that smelled faintly of rain. The ordinary rhythm calmed Liora for a few streets. Then the market breathed, and the calm thinned. They drifted into a narrow arcade stitched together from old beams and sun-bleached sailcloth. Here the light was the color of paper, and the air tasted like dust on the tongue. A scribe had set up a long table beneath a hanging bell that never rang. He offered sheets of parchment so pale they were almost invisible. "Contracts," he said, voice soft as an eraser's rub. "No blood, no ink. You sign by deciding." Liora frowned. "How do you—" "You decide," he repeated, and the topmost sheet darkened with letters as if a shadow had passed over it. Words arranged themselves into neat lines. "The bearer will not ask about the door home for 7 nights." The letters faded before her next breath. The page turned clear again. Faye's staff ticked once. "Walk on." But Liora could not help herself. What happens if someone decides and then changes their mind? The scribe's mouth made the shape of a smile without ever reaching it. Then the decision was a lie. Lies are the sharpest pens. He turned a page and the bell above gave a tiny movement, not a sound so much as the idea of one. The market reads them clearly. Elias's hand brushed her elbow, a quiet tug. "We're leaving." He did not exhale until the scribe was 3 stalls behind. Liora waited for an explanation. None came. They crossed into a lane of cool stone where the din of voices narrowed to a hush. Glass cases lined the stall to the left, each cradling a single gem. Not cut for sparkle, cut to hold something. A woman in black coat stood behind the cases with a jeweler's loop at her eye. When she looked up, Liora realized the loop was threaded to her temple with fine gold wire, as if she refused to remove it even to sleep. "Moments," the jeweler said. "Not memories. Those unravel. Moments keep their edges." Liora leaned close. The first gem was smoky, with a caught shimmer inside like light under water. When she stared long enough, the shimmer sharpened. A child's first step, wobbly, glorious. Another gem swirled with winter air and the taste of breath too cold to swallow. A third held a woman's hand letting go of another's in a crowd. Loss framed in a heartbeat. "How do you make them?" Liora asked. The jeweler tapped the loop with her nail. "Price," she said simply. "Some moments cost more than others to catch. You can tell by the glow." Elias had gone very still. His gaze snagged on a dark gem near the end of the case. Its center glinted the color of old iron. Around it, light pulsed faintly as if struggling. Liora read the tiny card. A promise kept too late. He reached towards the glass before catching himself. His hand closed slowly into a fist. "Not for you," the jeweler said gently, and Liora, who had never heard gentleness weaponized before, felt the cut of it. Some moments you buy only once. Some are not yours to wear. Faye's voice was level. "We're only looking." "Everyone says that," the jeweler murmured, and turned her loop toward Liora. "Careful with your wanting, Lantern Heart." It fogs the stones. The title startled Liora, Lanternheart, like the fox-eared child had called her. She stepped back, heat crawling under her skin. The coin in her pocket warmed, then cooled, as if warning her to keep still. They moved on. The arcade opened to a long, shaded aisle where paper birds roosted on wires. They were folded from contracts, maps, love notes, anything that once had meaning. And now their paper chests rose and fell with soft, mechanical patience. A boy in a linen cap fed them sentences from a basket, and the birds swallowed words like crumbs. Liora could hear the rustle go through them as each new sentence found its place among paper ribs. Debts must be answered, a bird whispered when it exhaled, which was not the sentence the boy had fed it. They passed a baker whose bread split open to show steam that smelled like orchid air. They passed a woman selling masks cut from shadow cloth that felt cool and damp to the touch. They passed a musician playing a violin that never touched her shoulder. The bow pulled song straight out of the air. All of it should have drowned the hollow in Leora's chest. None of it did. The ash would not brush off. Near dusk, or what passed for dusk here, Faye steered them to a curtained nook behind a spice stall. The curtain fell like heavy rain. Inside, a low pallet, 2 cushions, the careful arrangement of a place meant for pausing without being noticed. "We'll rest," Faye said, "and then we'll think." "You mean you'll think," Elias muttered, but his attempt at bite came out exhausted. He sank to the pallet like a man who had been standing too long inside a storm. Liora didn't realize she had fallen asleep until she woke. The market's sleeping hour was a softer dark than night, as if the lamps had turned their faces to the wall. Faye was a faint silhouette behind the curtain. Elias lay on his side, one arm thrown over his head, the other hand still crooked near his belt, as if his blade weighed him even in his dreams. At first she thought the sound was wind. Then she understood it was words tangled in his breathing. She only caught some of them. Names she did not know, a place that might have been a river or a street, the syllables blurred, then clear and close enough to sting. Collector. Payment. Elias's hand flinched. His mouth shaped a no that made no sound. Leora's throat closed. She could have reached across the span of the pallet and touched his shoulder. Instead, she curled her fingers into her palm until her nails bit skin. The curtain rustled. Faye's shadow shifted, then stilled. If she had heard, she didn't say. Outside the nook, the market turned on a slow hinge. Somewhere far away, a bell thought about ringing and decided not to. A paper bird coughed up a sentence and swallowed it again. A scribe's clear sheet waited for someone to decide. Liora lay awake, ash clinging to the edges of her breath. She thought of the contracts that signed themselves without ink. She thought of gems that measured price by glow. She thought of a promise kept too late, and of a boy feeding words to birds until the birds remembered the ones the market preferred. She did not touch the coin. She did not ask the market anything. She watched the dark and listened to Elias breathing around the words he could not keep down. And when sleep finally took her, it felt like stepping into a room where someone had just blown out the candles. The last thing she heard was the dry slip of paper wings.